Actress Cheryl Hines has condemned her husband, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., over comments he made during a rally against vaccine mandates about Anne Frank, a teenager who was murdered by Nazis. Now, Cheryl tweeted, "My husband's reference to Anne Frank at a mandate rally in D.C. was reprehensible and insensitive, and the atrocities that millions endured during the Holocaust should never be compared to anyone or anything. His opinions are not a reflection of my own." Now, Robert Kennedy Jr. did respond on Twitter stating, "I apologize for my reference to Anne Frank, especially to the families that suffered the Holocaust horrors. My intention was to use examples of past barbarism to show their perils from new technologies of control. To the extent my remarks caused hurt, I am truly and deeply sorry." So what are your thoughts on this? You know, was it right for her to make the decision to publicly condemn her husband?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to remind people that Anne Frank was one of 6 million Jews who were murdered by the Nazis during World War II. She was 15 years old. She hid in an attic in the Netherlands before she was caught, and she wrote a wonderful diary. So comparing this was an atrocity. I believe that Cheryl, for speaking out, that was good because, you know, it's like people can be married to people, and I always think about George Conway and Kellyanne Conway, who was the Kellyanne was the spokesperson for Trump. Her husband always spoke out against what they were doing, what she was doing, so it can happen. So I can understand why she did that, you know. Now, you know her.
I love Cheryl. I actually work with Cheryl on I Can See Your Voice, and I'm actually really proud of her for speaking up, and I think it's okay. I hate the idea that just because you're a wife, you have to go along with whatever your husband says. And that you don't have your own thoughts, and that you don't have your own opinions, or you don't have your own political stances. I also think it's important to remember that people change, and maybe the man that she married in 2014 may not be the same man that she's with today. I've seen people who literally, you're with somebody, they may take on something different. Obviously, we saw this kind of happen with Kim and Kanye at some point when he was wearing the MAGA hat, and we were all kind of looking at Kim like, what's going on here? Because then we'd see her at benefits that were for Hillary Clinton at the time. And all these things. And people were like, well, this doesn't make sense. And I love the fact that Kanye came out and said, my wife did not appreciate me wearing that hat. And she did not have that same stance. Versus Cheryl just came out and said it herself.
Yeah, she said it herself.
I do not agree.
Also, he's a politician. She is not. She is an actress.
And comes from a political family.
Absolutely. So I think it's great for her to stand out on her own, and you can be married to someone who has different political views, as long as it's not so extreme that it,
and in 2014, when she
herself.
married him, she didn't know there was going to be a pandemic in 2020 and have to have these conversations of, hey, what would you do if this was happening? You know, I think they're just walking through it as it's happening.
I will say, in 2015, he did put out some tweets that were questionable. Yeah, he did.
See, I didn't know about
so
that.
that's why people are kind of questioning
now.
That thing. But
would you be okay with having different political views with your girl?
Yeah, most definitely. It's just we're living in a point in time right now where everything is, you just got to watch what you say. Anything that you say is a part of your brand and a part of people's brand that are attached to you. So obviously, I respect her for coming out saying, hey, I understand that this is my husband, but you also got to understand, I'm not with that. You don't want that type of energy around.
And there used to be a time when women could not speak up.
Exactly.
That's why we're living in different times. It's like, a wife wouldn't be able to do this.
No, but do you remember the times like when husbands would come out and say they cheated, they did all this stuff, and the wife is just sitting next to them and not saying a word? I would be so livid. I would like, even if you don't want to support it, you don't have to sit right next to him.
You gotta say something.
You gotta say something.
We know Garcelle will speak out.
But her tweet was like, her tweet was cold. She was like, what he said was irrehensible. It's like she was using a big word. It was irrehensible. It's like you could tell when she was making the tweet, she was mad. She was.
And it was like
what he did. She grabbed Garcelle. She saw something she didn't like, and she went straight to her computer. She's like, I will not be happy.
You said, how much they gonna pay me again?
It was how do I say it? Irrepressible. Say the word.
Irrepressible.
And insensitive. She was mad.
Yes, she was.
I stand by her, and she has the right to speak up and speak out as a woman.